In Satsuma, a town in Japan, our main character, Raizo Kurima, a samurai, waits in the dark of the night to ambush his fiance's father, Genshin Hirata. He has been ordered to assassinate the man for betraying the Satsuma clan by smuggling opium. Raizo comes out of the shadows. Hirata's guards launch themselves at him, but Raizo skillfully dodges their attack and kills them. He slashes the man's throat, prays over the bodies, and flees from the scene. The man has enough strength left in him to bite a gold coin. Yuen Usui, a revenger, comes later to collect the gold coin from his mouth. The next day, Raizo sits under a bridge when Yuen finds him. He politely inquires about his name. Raizo gives it to him, saying that he works for the feudal lord Satsuma. Yuen introduces himself as the jack of all trades, running an odd job service for the villagers. They wanted him to investigate Raizo because they felt threatened by him. Yuen questions why he is taking refuge under a bridge rather than an inn, to which Raizo confesses that he has committed a murder upon the lord's orders. Yuen states that it shouldn't be a problem, since he had to carry out a job assigned to him. However, Raizo confesses that he knew the man very closely, and because of the fact he can't bring himself to face those who also know the now dead man. Their exchange has an almost client-therapist sort of atmosphere to it, because Yuen already knows everything, but just wants to cross-check it with the culprit himself. He tries to comfort the man by saying that as a samurai, Raizo probably has to make such tough decisions, but sitting in hiding isn't going to resolve anything. Yuen's conversation with him lightens the burden from his heart. Raizo admits that he feels much better now that he got to talk about it. Raizo gets up, but before he leaves, he tells Yuen to give the villagers the message that he has killed the strong man, or Benkei, referring to himself. Raizo is walking up a mountain road when the Lord's men come to congratulate him on the murder. They catch him by surprise when they pull out their guns to kill him. Just then, he hears a voice telling him to jump. As soon as they open fire, he jumps towards the river and the forest. He does get shot but makes it out alive thanks to a kid named Neo, who happens to be Yuen's revenger. Raizo wakes up to see Yuen working on making a maki-e gold-lacquered product. Apparently, this is his day job. Raizo demands who they actually are. Yuen starts off by explaining that someone from the Satsuma clan was indeed involved in smuggling opium provided by the English, but his father-in-law was investigating it around Nagasaki. However, the culprit, Matsumine Jonoshin, the chief financial officer, was the one who had given the order to kill Hirata, by passing it as the feudal lord's order to save himself. Raizo basically ended up taking the life of an innocent man. Raizo breaks down crying. He questions how he's going to live with the shame of killing an honorable man. Yuen asks if he's willing to let Matsumine keep using his power for his own gains. He further informs Raizo that Hirata had approached them before his death because he had a feeling something like this was bound to happen. He wanted them to complete his mission. To prove his point, Yuen takes out the bloody bitten gold piece. The mission needs someone who is familiar with the setup of Matsumine's estate and can easily infiltrate. Raizo willingly takes up the job. Soji, also a revenger, joins them as well. They start devising a plan to get past the gates. They decide on attacking in a small group to take the guards by surprise. They have to act fast in order to not alert the rest of the guards. Yuen suggests that Raizo stays behind because if the man does anything reckless, it could alarm the chief financial officer. Back at the estate, Matsumine is having a laugh with his men from earlier for fooling Raizo into killing his own father-in-law. They are still under the impression that Raizo has also died from the fall. One of them steps out to check the reason for the delay in alcohol being served. The reason turns out to be Neo. The kid strangles him with a glass-clad string and cuts his throat with it. Meanwhile, Raizo gets dressed and sets out to fight. Teppa Murakami, another one of the Revengers, watches from the rooftop. This was definitely not part of the plan. The other two men come outside to see what's going on. Soji attacks one of them with small cards called Hanafuda, but they are embedded with iron that act like blades. Yuen kills the other one with a gold leaf. The thing gets stuck on his face. Yuen starts reciting a prayer, and the man dies from suffocation. Neo finds the secret passage which Raizo had earlier denied existence of. Looks like he had outsmarted them. Matsumine runs through the passage and exits into a forest. Raizo comes out of the woods asking for an explanation. The man only holds a gun at him. Raizo runs past him and kills him with his sword. The Revengers watch him take away their kill. Nonetheless, Yuen makes Neo sound the bell because the job is taken care of. Raizo, however, isn't done yet. He keeps on running like a madman while holding a sword towards his stomach. He runs inside his fiancée's house, ready to apologize to her. Raizo opens the door but is met with the horrifying scene of her body lying in a pool of blood with a knife stuck in her throat. She had committed suicide. He holds her lifeless form in his arms as he screams in agony. Flashback starts of the time when the father and daughter were alive. Raizo was training under his father-in-law's supervision while Yui had brought them tea. He had taken off his shirt to dry up the sweat, but it had made the girl blush. It suddenly turns into a nightmare. The sword has blood all over it. The scene switches to Yui killing herself. He starts yelling for her to stop, but it's all in vain. Raizo wakes up. The guilt is eating him up. He keeps muttering that it should have been him in Yui's place. In the forest, there is a chapel where the priest as well as the Revengers in charge, Gerald Kano, can be found. Yuan meets him, presenting him with the bloody gold piece. Gerald goes on about how the deity says whoever takes someone's life shall meet his wrath. But as time passed by, the worshippers had decided that the Lord didn't administer any punishment. He had left them the responsibility to maintain justice, so they sought revenge. He gives him silver as a reward for the murders. But he knows that sort of swordsmanship isn't something anyone in their group is capable of, which indirectly means that he is aware of them giving Raizo refuge. Back at the store, Soji and Neo can't believe the meager amount of pay they have received. Yuen reminds them that it's going to be 5 now, with Raizo. The two are not happy to hear about it. Soji complains that the man had first snatched their target and now has to take from their payment as well. Neo suggests that they better get rid of him before the chapel finds out. Yuen tells them that the chapel already knows and they have to let him join. The two are still against the idea of it. Yuen annoyingly asks if they have any better option in mind, or should they tell the chapel to compensate for them and let them know that they failed the revenge mission. Soji grabs a bag and walks away. Teppei happens to be a skilled doctor as well. He's examining Mana, a terminally ill woman. She gives him a bitten gold coin. She had heard about a group of men in the brothel she works at, who happen to take care of your grudges if presented with a bitten gold coin. Teppei takes it and asks about who it is that she wishes to get rid of. The woman informs him that it's none other than her own husband, Inohachi. Mana goes on to tell him that the man was neck-deep into gambling debt. He sold whatever her father had bought for her marriage. Inohachi had planned it all with his boss, Tenmokuya. This means the target happens to be 2 people. Back at the store, Yuen asks how Raizo is finding his stay with them, and brings him his share of the pay. He wants to discuss other lines of work that they have. Raizo asks if he is referring to the Merchant of All Trades Odd Job Service, aka Ribbon Goto Odd Jobs. Yuen tells him that it can also be read as Ribenji, which literally means revenge in English. He explains that if someone holds a hostile grudge against another person, he asks for their services by giving them a bitten gold coin, and the group takes care of the dirty work for them. This is why they call themselves Revenger. Even though it's a murder at the end of the day, he justifies it by saying that someone has to punish the wrongdoers. Raizo says that he had killed Matsumine for the sake of vengeance, because the man had deceived him into taking the lives of his comrade and his father-in-law, but to kill someone for money is just not his cup of tea. Yuen tries to make him understand that every person isn't capable of taking care of their own vendetta, so the Revengers settle the score in their place. Raizo still doesn't feel like taking up the job. Yuen takes Raizo to Mana's wake. The woman has passed away. Teppei is already present there. They tell Raizo that she didn't want any incense or candles or even a coffin. The remaining money she had was saved up for that gold coin. The people she wants dead have already wronged many other women and sold them into prostitution. Raizo walks away, saying that he needs some time to think for himself. He goes to Yui's grave and asks for her forgiveness. Later, they take him to a basement full of armory right underneath the doctor's office. Teppei gives him rubber boots. The doctor then takes his position on a rooftop from where he can get a clear shot on the husband as he flees away in a boat. Teppei brings out a gigantic bow and arrow and shoots in the boat's direction. It hits the boat with so much force and velocity that the thing breaks into pieces. The guard sinks while the husband tries to stay afloat. He manages to climb out of the river. Raizo comes out of the dark with the rubber boots. They have spikes installed in them, which gives him the extra boost to jump. His scream creates ripples in the river, and he crosses it with a single jump, then cuts the man in half without even giving him the chance to process his own death. Meanwhile, Tenmokuya insults an aged prostitute for not being young enough. He gets out of the room and is met with the sight of Neo. The kid entices him by acting seductive and runs away to trap him. He runs after the kid like a madman. Yuen comes from behind, slamming a gold leaf on his face. Neo watches him struggle to breathe as he slowly suffocates. Yuen recites a prayer for him. Tenmakuya succumbs to his death after a minute or two. Neo gives Raizo a tour of the whole town and keeps watching him for any sort of reaction, but Raizo remains quiet the whole time. They stumble upon a shop owner begging for mercy from Sakata, a samurai but a drug dealer underneath a just facade who claims that the man has been dealing with opium. He keeps denying, but Sakata orders his men to bring forth the evidence. One of them breaks a wooden statue on the ground. Inside, it is opium wrapped in a cloth. Apparently, the shop owner's wife had told him about it. The man is taken away. After watching the whole ordeal, Raizo finally speaks, saying that what they did to the man was not fair. Nio, unfazed, tells Raizo that Sakata still showed the man some mercy. He kind of had it coming for not paying Sakata because in Neo's experience, if you pay a samurai, he leaves you alone. Soji is passed out drunk when he hears someone outside the door. He wakes up with a heavy head and sees Teppa bringing a blanket and pillow. Then he sees Raizo walk up to the door. Suddenly, he is no longer asleep. His suspicion is confirmed when Teppa affirms that Raizo will be rooming with him. He is already behind on the rent, so maybe having a roommate would help. Outside, Neo complains to Yuen about how boring Raizo was. The man was stone-faced the whole time Neo showed him around the town. The kid tells him that Yuen already knows Neo's dislike for samurais, and now one of them ends up joining the group. Yuen tries to make Neo feel better by saying that the man can no longer be a samurai, so the rest of them have to help him figure out a new path of life. Jinkuro Isarizawa, an official at the Magistrate office, has summoned Yuen to inquire about Raizo. He tells him that the murder of Matsumine and his men was quite alarming. Jinkuro questions if Yuen might have any idea where the man has been hiding because the last time he was spotted was under the Amigasa Bridge. Yuen acts clueless. The Magistrate official is still persistent on getting at least something out of him. He insists that he might have heard the locals providing Raizo with shelter, because Sakata wouldn't really like it when he finds out that Yuen, the Maki artist, was the one who chased the man from under the bridge. This surprises Yuen. Jinkuro clarifies that the Sakata is after him. He wants to become famous among the crowd. If the trade union gets involved in this, then things are about to get nasty. He further explains that earlier that day he had interrogated a man Sakata had brought in, and he had given him a gold coin. Jinkuro throws it towards Yuen. It happens to be a bitten gold coin. The man states that Yuen probably knows what to do with it. Was this a subtle hint to kill Sakata? Teppa and Neo visit a place full of malnourished and sick children and women. They have turned into skeletons barely breathing from all the opium consumption. Teppa finds the Kaoya owner's wife piled up with others in a cave. They let her know that her husband has been arrested for opium dealings. She tells them that they were the ones who told her to put the opium in the statue in exchange for medicine. The moment the others hear that word, they all wake up like zombies demanding some for themselves as well. She can't even recognize that Teppa isn't the right man. She was most likely referring to Sakata. The group is in the basement where Yuen tells them about his visit to the Magistrate official. Soji is irritated with the fact that the Magistrate can't even clean up their own mess and has to throw it on them. Yuen points out that they have already received the bitten gold coins, so someone must want Sakata dead. Soji volunteers to go on the mission but wants Raizo to tag along because after all they are up against a samurai. At night, as they set out, Neo informs them that they will have to fight against 5 men. Soji teases Raizo that it shouldn't be a big deal for a samurai like him. Soji is still being petty over sharing a room. He proposes that whoever gets to collect more heads tonight will be the one that gets to keep the room all for himself. Raizo easily agrees to the challenge. He goes into attack mode. Soji's plan is to let Raizo draw the men's attention. His samurai scream will make them all huddle in one place to check out the commotion. This will give Soji the advantage to sneakily take them out in one go. Raizo sneaks up on the first one and kills him effortlessly. Soji is disappointed to see him move quietly. Soji kills 2 with his cards and skips away. Raizo kills another, evening up the score. He encounters the next one, but Soji gets to him first. It looks like Soji won, but just then Raizo nails the sword through the door where Soji is standing. The latter freaks out as blood splatters. It isn't his though, but rather belongs to a 6th man who almost killed Soji. The man dies and they have a tie once again. Soji is sour about it, but a bet's a bet, and he claims that he will remain fair to it. 2 days go by with the same routine. Soji goes to gamble, drinks and loses. He falls asleep as soon as he hits the futon, and the next morning gets woken up by the loud shrikes of kids at noon. He finally gets fed up with Raizo staying mute the whole time. Soji decides to take him out to make some extra cash because the idiot spent all his money on buying a divider screen. Soji takes him to Teppa's office for an assistant's job. As soon as one of the villagers came to drop off fresh fruits and vegetables for Teppa, Raizo appeared. Upon seeing a literal samurai, she got scared and got herself out of there, even though Raizo tried to tell her a few times that he was only working as an assistant. Neo laughs at Soji's bright idea. Well, at least he tried. He and Neo start bickering back and forth until Yuen asks what the man actually ended up doing. Soji tells them that he had offered Raizo to make some extra cash by selling Yuen's maki bowls. He had told Raizo that it was worth quite a lot of money. The latter had asked to confirm that being a revenger was a secret job of theirs because he was still trying to get used to the concept of revenge. Long story short, Soji tried his best. He tells Yuen to knock some sense into Raizo. Yuen says that it's better for the man to simply worry till he has hit the walls of uncertainty. Yuen goes to the chapel where Gerald praises him for walking into the den of the feudal lord. Only a few would be brave enough to do that. Yuen, however, gets presented with an empty tray, no money to take back with him. Apparently, this revenger task has not been fulfilled. He questions about the source of Sakata's opium possession because the man was certainly not stupid enough to directly receive it from the English. There happens to be a middleman, Azumi the merchant, also part of an operation called Azumi, who, in exchange for opium, had gained influence through Sakata till it was possible for him to enter the Nagasaki trade union. Gerald wants them to kill Azumi because according to him, his heart is vacant of any love and faith. He is too ambitious and has no consideration for people suffering to the point that they want him dead. Back in the basement, the group devises a plan. Azumi has been spotted at his mistress's place. They need to get rid of both because according to Teppa, she needs to pay for her sins. She had hooked another woman on drugs in the guise of a foreign relaxation medication. So they decide on being the pretend owners of an art store right in front of her place. This way they can wait for Azumi to show up. Soji volunteers Raizo to sit in it. The next day, people hesitate on buying anything from the store because, as usual, Raizo's serious stoic face is scaring them away. Soji is caught by Neo while he tries to spy on him. Speaking of, Raizo gets immersed in painting different images. This grabs the attention of the people passing by and they slowly start buying. At night, Raizo spots Azumi entering the mistress's place. They hear the bell chiming. The mistress goes to take a look from the window. Azumi is already paranoid and readily assumes that it's probably the killer. She sees a bell attached to a kite. Something twinkles in the sky, and before her mind can even process anything, a giant arrow hits the man in the heart like a stake. She starts freaking out and runs outside, only to bump into the Grim Reaper, aka Yuen. He slams a gold leaf to her face as she denies any allegations of making people opium addicts. He starts praying, and she dies as he is finished with it. Later, when they leave the shop to the original owner, he is grateful that they looked after it and gives Raizo a bag of coins for his time. The old man's eyes fall on the paintings he had done and is so impressed by it that he wants to talk to a publisher about it. Raizo is left flustered. A circus has come to the village called Doan Company. Two of the kids that hang around with the little girl named Hana at the place rented to Soji and Raizo get lost. They try looking for the girl when the clown from the circus finds them. Back at the roommate's humble abode, Raizo is busy painting. Soji is still amazed at the fact that a sword-wielding man can draw so passionately. Hana comes to tell the two men about her missing friends. In the morning, they set out to look for the kids. They reach the graves on a hill where Hana's mother also lays to rest. Over the hilltop, Neo is having a kite match while Yuen has a picnic blanket spread out. The clown shows up, demanding Yuen to return his monster back to him while referring to Neo. Yuen doesn't want to hold any conversation with him. He makes it clear that Neo is a human being and he isn't going to trade the kid off for money. The clown insists that he is still a monster, only declawed and defanged. Neo is happily flying the kite when the kid's eyes fall upon the clown. This distraction gives a chance for the men to cut Neo's kite. Soji watches it get cut from afar and lets out a scream because he was betting on Neo's win. They report to Yuen that the two kids aren't the only ones missing. Yuen guesses Doan is probably behind it. He explains the company abducts odd-looking kids for their performances. Neo happens to be one of them. Neo goes to pay a visit to the clown. He is happy to have Neo back. The kid asks how much he will get paid for working with him. Meanwhile, the rest of the kids are thrown into cages like some animals and given rice balls for dinner. Neo then walks towards the cages. telling the kids that receiving a meal 3 times a day at the circus sounds way better than living in the mountains, and throws a gold coin in front of the cages. Neo brings it back to show it to the rest of the Revengers. They quickly catch up to what Neo has done and start questioning the authenticity of the bitten coin when Soji reminds them that there hasn't been any solid proof of the bitten gold coins in the past as well, so what's the point of questioning it now? Neo requests to slay the man and sets out for the kill. Soji and Raizo act as decoys to lure the enemy. 2 of the circus men find them. One of them blows fire at them and the other throws knives. Raizo goes after the fire breather. Teppa gets attacked by the one with muscles and strength. It seems that they know each other. Soji runs out of a whole deck of cards, but the man hits every single one of them. Just when it looks like the ball is in the clown's court, the fire breather starts to struggle. This distraction gives Raizo the time to kick the man onto the other. An explosion takes place right after. Teppa takes care of the muscle man. The explosion has reached the tents. Yuan throws the keys to the kids' cages towards the snake woman. She gets them all out, telling them to help each other out to run outside. Back in the clown's tent, Neo requests to get choked, which is apparently the only messed up way to go back. The clown starts choking, but can't bring himself to do it. Neo decides to do it instead by showing him a glass-coated string. The clown doesn't even oppose nor puts up a fight, but rather is honored to be killed by the kid. Neo wraps the string around his neck and slashes it. The blood splashes on the wall of the tent. Yuan silently watches. The next day, Neo enjoys a large sweetbread from Soji's hard-earned money because the man feels like he owes the kid for the kite. He is just glad Hana wouldn't have to worry about those mountain kids anymore. Neo confesses that the kids biting the coin was a setup. Soji is disappointed because he hadn't caught on to Neo's mischief the previous night. Raizo takes his illustrations to the art store owner. He is impressed and informs Raizo that a publisher wants him to make a hanging scroll illustration. He even provides Raizo with the material. The latter tries to humbly decline the offer, but the old man tells him that his hands are a gift from the Buddha and he should look after them. Soji can't handle the cringe. Yuan goes to the pleasure quarters to meet Jinkuro again. Soji and Raizo are heading back when they get ambushed by 4 men. Soji warns him not to kill any of them. They fight all 4 head-on. 2 escape while the other 2 get caught. They confess that they were only paid silver to attack them. They don't know anything besides that. Soji believes that this probably has to do with the many grudges Raizo must have with people from his previous job as a samurai. At the pleasure quarter, Yuan gives his condolences to Jinkuro about Azumiya's death. Jinkuro isn't in a good mood because the owner of Azumiya died himself, even though he was supposed to be handling Sakata's funeral. Yuan acts clueless like always. Jinkuro then asks if Yuan might have received any news on the Benkai because the people from Chinatown are already after him. This might explain the earlier ambush on Raizo. Yuan is alarmed at the information. Jinkuro continues to say that he can't let them take the man who had killed Hirata Genshin because how will he face the magistrate then? Yuan wants to understand things better. He asks about the involvement of people from Chinatown. Jinkuro explains that there is a possibility that the men are after the opium that Hirata Genshin was investigating. His only concern is the magistrate taking care of the matter in Chinatown, and then the Nagasaki Trade Union finding out about it, creating fuss over it. He subtly hints for Yuan to take care of the task for him. Teppa goes to Chinatown and tries to get intel on the whole looking for samurai from Susuma ordeal, but he gets threatened and has to walk out of the place. He's in the basement with the rest and recalls it being a hair-raising experience. The men from Chinatown probably are panicking over Matsumine's disappearance, and Raizo might be their only lead. Raizo decides to go talk to the men himself. Yuan reminds him that if they were up for talking, they wouldn't have tried to kidnap him earlier. However, Raizo is certain that he wants to do this even if it means he won't return alive, because according to him, his life doesn't hold any meaning after killing his own father-in-law. However, he's reminded that if things go south, then there is a chance that Jinkuro will put the blame on the Revengers. This makes the atmosphere serious. Neo annoyingly states that they could have tied up the man before he makes a fool of himself. Yuan still questions what Chinatown has got to do with Raizo. He orders Neo to follow him in order to find out the why. Soji tells Neo to get on with it before Pajama Police, aka Jinkuro, catches them. Raizo walks into Chinatown with a confident form. The men instantly recognize him. A Chinese man named Liu Wenlin is already standing outside with his men for a face-off. Raizo smugly tells them that since they were looking for him, he decided to show up. Leo knocks him out in a single move, ordering his men to take him away. Neo watches in secrecy. Raizo wakes up tied to a pole inside a ship. Liu seems disappointed with his stoic demeanor. He was expecting either a samurai coming back with his tail between his legs, or an angry, ferocious tiger ready to tear them apart. Definitely not a determined man with an aim. They get interrupted by an unannounced visit from Simon Shishido, the general overseer from the Nagasaki Trade Union. Neo cuts off the ship's anchors. The guards freak out at seeing the ship set a sail. They try to get to them through the well of their boats, but Tepper destroys them from underwater. Inside one of the ships, Raizo questions about their identity and why they happen to be after him. The man doesn't answer and submerges his head inside a water barrel. Yuen and Soji make their entrance. Inside the ship, the man starts demanding Raizo about the location of the goods that he has kept hidden. Raizo is definitely confused now. Soji's card saves him from getting burned. Soji kicks a fire burner, causing the ship to start burning. He jumps on the man, Raizo chained up still. Soji can't think of anything else and starts to suffocate him. Raizo keeps falling unconscious. Soji brings him up and they all escape. Meanwhile, Liu sees the smoke rising from afar. He gets suspicious and tells Shishido that he was guaranteed welfare for his people. Shishido cleverly comments that how does a boat far into the sea supposed to be counted in this? Plus, if he had concerns, then he should have already come to Shishido for help. Liu starts quoting what Shishido had once told him, that the trade union is supposed to hold a lot of power and Magistrate shouldn't be feared. Yet here they are. Liu's ship has been raided by unknown men, and the man they earlier spoke of has been set free. Shishido guesses that this can't be the antiques of Pajama Police aka Jinkuro, because these people have acted fast. However, one such group does exist. If paid, they take up odd jobs, and they have caused the trade union quite the trouble. They are none other than Rebengia, or Revenger. Raizo's wounds have been dressed. He informs the rest that the only thing that he was able to figure out is that the men weren't linked to Matsumini. They thought Raizo was the one who had opium, which only means that the copious amount of opium has somewhere been stashed in Nagasaki by the chief financial officer of Satsuma. Back at their place, Raizo can't focus on painting. He wants to draw Yui, but he starts seeing horrifying images of her and her father with piles and piles of dead bodies. Seems like avenging Hirata's death didn't stop the nightmares. Meanwhile, some monks are summoned to a nunnery. A nun shows up after a minute with an exposed cleavage and red lipstick. Apparently, this is part of the training. Male prostitutes walk inside. They are going to guide them to enlightenment through the god of bliss. A man named Seiku is new to this experience. He is already baffled by this. To make matters worse, he is told to choose one for himself. The stench of opium reaches his nose. Inside his private tent, he doesn't want to indulge in the act, but the prostitute kisses him hard, telling him that these nuns are always eavesdropping. Even though he was from a samurai family, he ended up being a prostitute by committing the same mistake. He confesses that he wants to bite a gold coin, but Seiku offers him to join a temple to seek atonement for his sins. As he is again alone with the rest of the opium addict prostitutes, the nun comes in, making him take the opium through a device straight in the neck. She reminds him to get any straight ideas out of his head and orders him to go after the man. Back inside his room in the temple, Seiku sees that prostitute coming towards him in an almost zombie-like gait. The opium has fogged up his mind. He starts touching the monk. Seiku has tears streaming down his face from looking at the man's condition and the act that they are indulged in. The prostitute bites a gold coin. Later, Seiku tells a man that he is no longer a monk. The coin reaches the Revenger. They are huddled in the basement discussing the use of opium in the so-called righteous institutions. Temples and nunneries are the ones that hook up their so-called customers on the opium, and then, as a result of too much addiction, they fall prey to these institutes. According to Tepper, this opium trade seems to be regulated by the magistrate and the merchants. Either someone has stocked up on the drug or Chinatown has finally found Matsumini's stash. Tepper reminds them to just focus on revenge because nothing has been proven yet. In the middle of the night, Neo enters the temple where the nuns reside. They meet their end, one after the other. Inside the temple, Yuen murders two of them with the gold leaves. Tepper and Raizo watch as the head hun escapes. She tosses away her veil and climbs over the wall. Raizo blocks her way. She tries to gain his sympathy. He comes closer. She jumps to kiss him while holding that opium-inserting device in her hand. Raizo quickly throws her off him. However, their path gets blocked by none other than Liu himself. The men start fighting. Liu appears to be way faster and agile than Raizo. He receives a blow but quickly counterattacks. They both dodge each other, until Raizo wields his sword. Liu stops it with his hands alone and gives Raizo a few hard punches. Blood gets drawn from Reizo's mouth. The latter drops his sword, but the hand-to-hand combat looks difficult as well. Liu appreciates his effort though. The nun takes this opportunity to run away. Liu steps on Reizo's sword to hold him back from going after her. Not on Soji's watch though. He strikes her in the middle of her forehead with his blade. She dies instantly. Upon seeing the Revengers teaming up against him, the man decides to escape. He gets out of there with literal lightning speed, leaving Soji impressed. Meanwhile, Jinkuro is summoned by the Magistrate. It seems to be something of importance because the Nagasaki Trade Union's Simon Shishido is also present there. The latter asks the administrator if he knows anything about a gold-bitten coin. The man relays that there is a rumor if a person bites a gold coin, his enemy dies overnight. Jinkuro tries to negate it by calling it a baseless rumor that once got attached to some rogue assassins. Shishido insists that they can't ignore it if it is linked to Sakata's death. This surprises the administrator, saying that Sakata was reported to have died from a sudden illness. Shishido presents a bloody sock as evidence. The administrator, without a second to waste, orders Jinkuro to look into the matter. As they leave the magistrate, Jinkuro voices his annoyance with Shishido. The latter slyly tells him to look into the matter because who knows, Jinkuro might find a connection for Satsuma's case with that of Sakata's. Jinkuro corners him and tells him to stop beating about the bush. He wants to hear Shishido thank him for cleaning up Sakata's mess because the man had dug his claws in the opium trade. From Shishido's casual demeanor, he already knew about it and is most likely going to take Sakata's place in the business. Shishido shamelessly offers Jinkuro to join him for tea to discuss it. The latter angrily holds him against a wooden sword, saying that he has no interest in joining. He has already seen the zombie state the woman he once loved has turned into. So the man better keep this drug thing on the down low. Shishido laughs it off and jokingly says that Jinkuro looks like he might commit seppuku with the sword, aka suicide by cutting the lower belly. Jinkuro irritably tells him that only a severed head is enough to bite a gold coin, so he better watch out. Shishido cheekily informs him that he might as well do it, not for Sakata's sake, but rather for his operation. The people of Chinatown are searching for a storage of opium though. Jinkuro walks away, telling him to let him deal with it like always. On one side of the room, Soji is snoring peacefully, while on the other side, Reizo concentrates on painting Yui's image. He is successful in doing it this time. He signs it under the alias Taishin. Reizo and Yuen visit the art store. The old man takes a look at the art piece. He is delighted with the result. On their way back, Reizo admits that he keeps seeing her image when he closes his eyes. He couldn't help himself and had to paint her portrait. Reizo buys a new brush. They head towards a little cabin in the woods. While going there, Yuen tells him that he feels honored when Reizo confesses he had taken a character from Yuen's name for his alias. They reach the cabin. Yuen tells him that he can come here when he needs peace and quiet for his art projects. He has a feeling that soon Reizo will be booked with a lot of work. Yuen advises him to leave his past behind and start over as Taishin the artist. However, Reizo is restless for what he has done to his father-in-law and superiors. He can't move on until things are sorted out. Yuen leaves him to think. On the way back, Neo pops out from behind. Yuen had earlier told the kid to get the place ready. Neo asks why Yuen had to bring the man out here. He tells the kid that he's waiting to see whether Reizo deserves to live or not. Reizo steps inside a pub for the first time. He hesitates to order wine, but goes with it eventually. While eating, Yuen's words resonate in his head. He's already drunk by the time another man, Sada the Pilgrim, unbeknownst to Reizo, a revenger as well, is told to share a table with him. He says that he is a priest, but definitely not a pious one. Reizo, in his drunken state of mind, asks if murderers can atone for their sins by doing a holy pilgrimage. Priest finds it funny. However, he agrees and says that it's merely a samurai's job to kill, so there's nothing wrong with it. Definitely not what a priest should be saying, though. Anyways, he further says that killing someone is a form of sustaining life, the same way they get to eat food. He goes on to say that plainly taking a life instead of doing it through coins makes it even more respectful. He then proceeds to explain that making a livelihood is just buying a portion of your life to do some labor for coins. Therefore, Reizo shouldn't worry his head over something as little as murder. Upon hearing this, Reizo abruptly gets up. He leaves, but not before he pays for both of them. Yuen has been summoned to the chapel yet again. Jared isn't pleased with their little night party on the ship, but goes on to say that at least the true sinner has been identified, who happens to be Liu of Chinatown. He must be put to rest. Yuen is presented with a gold coin, but this time a large Oban gold coin. No bite marks are visible, however, it has been scorched. Yuan questions where the vendetta mark happens to be. Gerald tells him that the revenge has been burnt onto the coin. Yuan recognizes the scorching to be from Shimabara. The incident consisted of a large number of Catholic commoners slaughtered for their beliefs. This happens to be the gold they have entrusted to the chapel for their revenge. Yuan questions what it has got to do with Liu. Gerald doesn't like him talking back and tells him to handle the matter swiftly before Liu's men end up finding Matsumine's opium. He makes it clear that there is no other revenger he can trust to do this job for him. Yuan takes the scorched Oban coin to the group. Soji is over the moon. They notice the missing bite on the coin, but apparently this is a direct order from the higher command, so they have to follow it. Before Raizo can even complain, Soji quickly reminds him that this happens to be a golden opportunity for the samurai as well, because he was going to encounter Matsumine's people sooner or later. Raizo tells him that Yuan had said it himself that they have to take revenge when there is a bite mark on the coin. This spirals into Soji and Neo bickering back and forth. Yuan proposes that they should check out what the church is really up to. Teppa comments on how this Oban coin might be a test to check their loyalty. Soji comes up with the plan to send Neo to Chinatown, check out Liu. If the man is as bad as the chapel makes him out to be, then there should be someone willing to bite the coin. Yuan is quick to agree. This way they will get to know how the chapel will react to things. In the morning, Shishido called Sada the pilgrim to his estate. He questions why he has been summoned instead of Yuan's group. Shishido awkwardly tells him that they are giving their boss a tough time, and might as well stay away from that. Sada definitely doesn't mind being of service. Shishido proceeds to bite 4 coins that hardly leave a trace of any bite mark. His monkey even gets to bite one. Meanwhile, Neo makes it to Chinatown. Liu hands over a scroll to one of his men. Neo bumps into him on a street and walks away. The kid goes to a quiet place to on-pen the scroll. Nothing is written on it. Liu appears from the dark. He had already received intel about this. Liu picks up the kid and throws Neo at the wall. Thankfully, Raizo shows up. The man demands to know his plan with Matsumine's opium. Meanwhile, on a rooftop, Sada's Revenger group member Ippachi the Hawkeye takes aim to shoot Liu. Yuan gets a hold of the actual scroll. It is addressed to the Qing Imperial Commissioner, Lin Zaxu. Just then, Ippachi shoots Liu, leaving Raizo in shock. Raizo drags him to safety. Neo runs to get Teppa. Yotaro the Shuriken, another Revenger from Sada's group, also makes an appearance. Raizo demands his identification. Yotaro ignores him and tells him to just walk away, they will take care of the mess. Soji joins them. He informs Yotaro that Liu is going to make them earn an Oban coin, and besides, they got here first. Yotaro's distraction gives Raizo enough time to get Liu out of there. Yotaro's confused because he thought Revengers were supposed to kill a target on sight. Soji only replies that things are too complicated to explain right now. Sada tells Ippachi to leave things the way they are for now. They signal Yotaro to fall back. Liu gains consciousness. Raizo still has him on his back while running. After questioning him, Raizo realizes that they have the same aim, to burn down the hoard of opium. Liu asks about Raizo's boss. The man replies that he simply has none at the moment. Liu faints again. He keeps fading in and out of consciousness. Teppa has removed the bullet. Flashbacks start. He's reminded of the time he was ordered to get rid of all the opium from the Qing Empire because everyone around him was hooked on it, even his little sister. It's the next day. Teppa reads a Chinese book to Soji and Neo which explains the Qing Empire's struggle to eradicate opium from their kingdom. Basically, the empire had plenty of products to trade such as silk, tea and porcelain while the English had nothing. So they started trading Indo-produced things such as opium. Soon enough, the whole empire got addicted even though it was supposed to be banned. The empire decided to meticulously cleanse themselves from the drug. They appointed a reputable administrator, Lin Zexus, to make sure the task is properly carried out. This means that Liu is only the messenger and not some important figure. Neo asks what all of this has got anything to do with them. Teppa tells them that they'll be surprised how well connected the world happens to be. They hear commotion from inside. Liu is awake and moving even though he shouldn't be. Teppa goes inside to tell him that with the condition he is in, it's best he stays on the down low. Liu points out why a hired murderer needs to play doctor. Teppa tries to make him understand that they don't hold any personal grudges, but rather settle the vendettas bitten into gold coins. Raizo wants him to join them because they have the same goal, to get rid of opium. Liu, however, doesn't like the sound of it. Yuan joins them. He hands Liu a cup and asks how he got himself into all of this mess. The man replies that the English hated getting searched at each stop for opium, so they would hide the drug in vegetables and fruits, and someone in Nagasaki had their eyes on the opium that was being smuggled in. The amount is too large to keep under check. The English will soon buy it back at a much lower price than it was bought. Now that Matsumine is dead and someone else has snatched it, Liu slowly starts feeling dizzy and passes out. Yuen had added something into the water before giving it to him. Soji stands pondering on top of a bridge when Neo joins him, asking what was bothering the man. Soji expresses his concern for getting involved with the Qing and the English, and the fact that he doesn't even understand what they have got to do with them. Neo wants him to relax because Yuen will probably come up with something. Soji tells the kid that Yuen, however, is bent on helping out Liu. Back in the basement, Teppa and Yuen discuss the matter regarding Liu's identity. They don't know who shot him, nor do they know who stole Matsumine's opium. Moreover, a lot of people probably want Liu dead because of his identity. Teppa questions a few things. Why does the chapel want Liu dead? What if the chapel is working with or for whomever that currently has the opium? What if the Oban coin was a test to see if they would get involved in opium distribution themselves? Yuen tells him that all of this could be a possibility. Teppa is sure the chapel has already figured out that they are protecting Liu instead of killing him. Yuen calmly says that he will have to return the Oban coin on the day of Sabbath when he pays a visit to the chapel. However, if he doesn't make it out of there alive, then Teppa needs to take over. The doctor warns him to stay alert out there. Liu is up again but looks even worse. The man is slowly dying away. Raizo wants him to rest up, but Liu insists on going to Chinatown to at least tell his men to send the message of Liu's dying state to the commissioner. Raizo, after a minute's thought, decides to take him there. Back in Chinatown, Liu's men worriedly wait for the possibility of their boss's return when Sada's revenger barges in, saying that they are there for revenge. Sada unsheathes his sword and takes them both out in a single blow. Outside on the port, inside a Chinese ship, unknown barrels have been placed by the Japanese merchants. As soon as they uncork it, a large explosion takes place. Raizo goes to check it out, leaving behind Liu. Definitely a big mistake. Sada's revenger, Suit the Tonfa, shows up. Liu can barely stand up against the wall. How is supposed to fight him? Liu tries to fight, but blood sputters out as he coughs. Raizo comes back to protect him. He scares away Suit. Liu lies there in pain and agony. He laments the fact that the commissioner had entrusted him with a ship and men. Now they have turned to ashes. His comrades are dead and he doesn't even know who's behind it all. The world starts spinning in front of his eyes. He knows his time has come. Raizo takes out a gold coin, telling him to entrust the vendetta to him before his soul departs. Back at Shishido's estate, Suta profusely apologizes to Sada in a kneeling position for not killing Liu. Sada is more than disappointed. How could he not kill an already dead man? Sada gets called by Shishido. In a private room, the nun from the chapel is present. She informs the both of them that the chapel has no connections with Yuen's revengers. Sakata tells her that if Sada had known the fact earlier, he would have gone all out on killing Liu. Sada wants to discuss the ship explosion in Chinatown. They put the whole blame on Raizo and the group for the explosion, saying that should be taken into account because the Chinese are under the trade union's protection. Shishido requests to bite a gold coin regarding the incident. The nun accepts as if Shishido wasn't the one who had set up the explosion. Later at night, Sada and Shishido stand in a massive opium-filled storage. They talk about how Liu is most likely dead by now. Shishido wants to know the sort of face Liu would have made had he known that he was responsible for all of this. After all, he is the one who has snatched Matsumine's opium. Sada questioned why hadn't Shishido traded it to the Qing. He could have then outed them and forced them to hand it over to the English. Shishido, however, has far bigger plans. He wants to turn the whole of Nagasaki into an opium-addicted community till their last breath. Yuen is at the pajama police's place. The latter tells him that the trade union is putting the blame on them for stealing the opium, burning down the Chinese ship led by Liu, who was ordered to retrieve the drug. Yuen points out that this wouldn't ultimately tarnish the trade union's reputation. Shouldn't the higher-ups look for the actual culprit? Jinkuro asks him why he thinks they are doing this, to which Yuen replies that maybe they do know the true culprit is the trade union itself, which is why they want to put the blame on the revengers. Jinkuro tells him that he's got that right. Even though this is what the trade union has agreed upon, however, a loose thread, Shishido wants to get on good terms with the chapel. Yuen does understand why Shishido would risk his own position to do so because soon enough he will be appointed to take over. Jinkuro tells him that the man had almost made Sakata put the blame on Jinkuro as well. He had underestimated Shishido, but it's about time he got serious because that man is soon going to turn the whole of Nagasaki into a giant drug den. Ippachi blows through Soji and Raizo's window, but they have already escaped. It strikes a makeshift blanket man. Shishido has summoned a few men along with Yuen. He displays a pottery piece from a deceased man named Tenzan. Shishido wants Yuen to give it a touch of his Meiki art. Yuen politely declines, saying that this piece probably didn't turn out the way Tenzan wanted it to be, and Yuen would rather not put his own touch to someone else's artwork, ruining it even further. Shishido insists that a ton of things are considered a failure by a maker, which are later appreciated as a fine art piece, and he believes that one such piece is this teapot. Shishido keeps making witty remarks. One of the men points out Taishin's painting, which apparently Shishido had a hard time getting his hands on. The men appreciate his art skills, while Shishido remarks that giving the man a brush to paint the image of a dead woman he had loved is just too cruel. He slyly looks at Yuen, to which the man replies that this is the only way Taishin copes with his grief. Teppa is about to go back into his office when he hears someone coming out of the bushes, but it's only a cat. Soji and Neo have crammed themselves into Teppa Place, because now that they all are a target, they can't live in their usual places and they don't want to stay at Yuen's place because that would mean being around a boring Raizo. However, they still don't want to help around the place. Teppa tells them that Yuen is probably on his way to return the Oban coin. They will have to wait for the final verdict from the chapel. Soji angrily gets up because he no longer has the appetite to eat the radish Teppa is cooking. They think that he is about to go after Yuen, but it turns out he only wants to gamble to try his luck. Yuen is in the chapel. Gerald pardons him for not killing Liu. Yuen asks why they had to go for the revenge when he only wanted to eradicate opium from Chinatown. Gerald doesn't appreciate him poking his nose. Yuen brings up Shishido and the priest being acquaintances. Gerald is offended. Yuen further asks why the ones who died at Shimabara didn't leave a bite mark on the Oban coin. Moreover, Shishido doesn't hold any grudges against people. He just likes seeing people suffer. Furthermore, his corrupt teeth couldn't stain this Oban coin. Gerald reminds him that he has taught him better than being rude. It will only lead his astray from the faith. Yuen isn't giving up until he gets a straight answer from the man. He asks if he would be okay with watching Nagasaki succumb to the opium Shishido will soon be distributing amongst the people. Gerald replies that those whose belief is strong, they will not stoop this low, and makes it sound as if Shishido is doing the Lord's work for sifting out the virtuous. Yuen shows him a gold coin with a deep bite mark. He tells the priest that it's left by Liu, a vendetta upon those who have betrayed him and killed his comrades. He can't ignore it as a revenger and walks away alive. Yuen tells Raizo about Shishido being responsible for Liu's death and stealing Matsumine's opium. Raizo says that he finally understands the purpose of a revenger today and thanks Yuen for showing him the truth. He will stand up for the right cause even if it brings him death. If he survives, then he will disembowel himself, aka seppuku, the samurai way of committing suicide. Yuen reminds him that he has another name, Taishin, he can live through his other persona. Soji goes for a gamble, but there he comes across the nun from the chapel participating as well. Soji sits to play. He keeps winning and winning and winning until he is fed up and leaves. On the walk back, he wonders why she was even present there. Suddenly, she comes after him in a mask. He looks for his cards, but she had stolen them earlier with a magnet trick. The nun keeps running from him in the forest while laughing. He ends up in front of a temple. He yells at her to just bite a gold coin if that's the case. She questions him about Raizo, why Yuen has not killed him but rather given him shelter. Soji tells her that he hasn't got a clue about it. She wants him to find out, but he doesn't want to go snitching for her. She points out that he already got the money for it. Looks like him winning during the game was a setup. And just like that, she vanishes. Raizo goes towards the site of that burnt ship. Ippachi tries to take aim, but Raizo notices and moves out of range. The former explains to Suit that he can't just carelessly shoot whenever because Raizo is definitely not alone. The rest of the group is probably nearby. Sure enough, Neo's kite can be seen soaring high in the sky. At the chapel, Gerald asks the nun about any progress with Yuen's revengers. She tells him if he is so impatient, then why not send some of his own revengers rather than wait on Shishido's revengers to deal with them. He states that he doesn't want to lose any of them, and they have far more important matters to deal with. For instance, when the opium floods through Nagasaki, making it weak, and the English will feel tempted to pouch on them, then the faith of Shimabara will be completed. She points out that by that he basically means to build God's kingdom in the Kyushu island and rule over it. He tries to sound surprised. Soji wants to talk to Yuen about Raizo. He starts off by asking if they really were going to Satsuma to avenge Hirata's death. Then for whom did Yuen ring the bell when Matsumine was killed? Because it definitely wasn't for Hirata. Moreover, who was the one that had to deliver the pin to Yui which Yuen had made upon Hirata's request? Yuen says that he was the one who personally had to give it to her. Her father had already known that Raizo was going to kill him, so he had wanted them to avenge his death. Later, when Yuen gave it to her, he told her about the killer. It was as if she had seen a ghost. She couldn't believe it. Her eyes were left wide open in horror. She started to lose her mind. Yui had felt as if Raizo had made a fool of her. She felt that killing her father was his plan all along, while he told her that he would protect her with his life to deceive her. She had told Yuen to get rid of him. The bite on the gold coin was indented so deep that it almost broke off. However, when Raizo told Yuen the truth the very first time they met under the bridge, Yuen had thought of returning the coin, but Yui killed herself before he could get the chance to do it. Now Yuen can't return the coin nor kill Raizo. Soji blames Yuen's pity over Raizo for getting into the mess that they all are currently in, and all Raizo cares about is going after this opium crap. They can't even walk outside in peace. Soji really wants them to fulfill Yui's vendetta against Raizo. Teppa reminds him that it would have to wait because they have to deal with Shishido first, and besides, could Soji really bring himself to kill Raizo? The next day, Soji is sent to keep an eye on Raizo in case the man loses his composure. Them walking outside in broad daylight gives Neo the freedom to move the kite freely. Raizo is determined to get the job done because a bitten gold coin is an oath that needs to be fulfilled. This reminds Soji of Yui's coin. He cautiously takes out his cards to attack Raizo, but the man quickly turns around and tackles him to the ground. A gunshot is heard after a split second. Sada's revengers are nearby because the bullet grazes Reizo's ear and goes straight through the fence. Meanwhile, Yuen notes down the observations made to Jinkuro. A ship sails at night and returns at dawn, which is obviously suspicious. Jinkuro makes the assumption that perhaps the English once built a lighthouse to spy on them. They would retreat to it whenever needed. Plus, if the trade union entered the area, that would be considered trespassing. The lighthouse could definitely be a trap. Yuen assures him that he has already sent someone to check it out. At night, Neo sets a sail with Yotaro. Sure enough, there is a lighthouse on a small island. Neo jumps off the ship into a small boat and gets out of there. Meanwhile, Shishido is taking a picture of an opium-dazed woman. Sada informs him that Yuen's revengers have found out about the island. The man is pleased rather than upset. He wants Sada to finish them all at once while referring to them as rats. At night, Yuen's revengers get their stuff ready and set out for a face-off with Sada's group. Sailors in a ship wonder what could be so important in the boxes, but they have been told to ship off in the middle of the night. They have a feeling that something shady is going on. Their thoughts get answered when an arrow lands right next to them with explosives strapped to it. Teppa warns them to jump into the water. They jump and the ship sets ablaze a second after. Yuen and Neo are busy killing people at Shishido's place. Meanwhile, upon reaching the island, Teppa, Raizo and Soji start killing dozens of men coming at them. Everyone is occupied tonight. Teppa has figured out the location of the opium. It's at the top of the island. On the other hand, Sada's group has taken a spot at a tower for clearer view. Suta reports to them that only 3 of the revengers have been spotted. At Shishido's place, Neo is enjoying the killing spree to the fullest. However, they get an unwelcoming visit from a tiger. Back at the island, the other 3 keep moving. They know that Sada's group is targeting them from upper ground, so Soji and Raizo run in opposite directions. A shot is fired. The moment Teppa aims his arrow at Ippachi, he gets distracted by Suta holding an explosive. Ippachi doesn't miss this opportunity and fires at him, hitting him in the lower abdomen. Soji dodges a shuriken from Yotaro at the last moment and runs to check on Teppa. Meanwhile, Yotaro and Raizo start having a fight. Ippachi is targeting him next. Yotaro throws a shuriken at him again, but Raizo dodges and Soji hits him with it while his blade is stuck on the shuriken. Teppa's arrow lands right on Ippachi's shoulder. Soji yells at Raizo to keep going, he's got Teppa covered. Raizo finally has an encounter with Sada and recognizes him from the pub. Sada calls it fate. Meanwhile, the tiger is still there. Yuen sprinkles gold dust, fogging up his vision. The tiger runs towards a fountain and falls into it, becoming Feast of the Flesh, eating piranhas. Neo, for the first time, feels sorry. Sada tells Raizo that to get to the warehouse, he will have to fight him first. He wants to see if Raizo's famous Samurai Jigen Ryu move, aka the first strike, can be faster than him drawing his blade. Sada is slightly impressed, but Raizo reminds him that if it were Liu's first strike, he would have chopped Sada's tongue off by now because of how quick he was. They keep going back and forth. Raizo is almost completely covered in blood, while Sada isn't even slightly scratched. He tells Raizo if the man hasn't got any more tricks up his sleeve, then he is about to end his life. Raizo reminds him that when they first met, he had told him that whether by the sword or by the coin, at the end of the day you take a life, so what's in it for him to take revenge? Sada replies that it's an honest job. You take the money to take a life. Raizo doesn't like the sound of that philosophy. He points out that the revenge is driven not by the money, but by the grudge engraved into the gold coin. They have come this far out to honor the vendetta left behind by Liu on a gold coin. Sada finds it hilarious. He charges forward as Sada's sword digs into him. Sada jumps back, withdrawing it. Raizo looks unfazed even though blood is literally spraying out of his body. Sada is definitely freaked out by Raizo's willingness to embrace death. He can't understand why Raizo wants to willingly die. Guess it's a samurai thing. Sada runs away and calls for Suit to ambush. Raizo dodges and sends a sword right into the boy's stomach. Raizo hurriedly tries to catch up to Sada. The man reaches the opium den and cuts off the bridge. No one can get to it now. He isn't even the least bit bothered by the kid's death, even though he is literally from his own group and makes a pun out of his name. Raizo jumps off the cliff. Teppa's boots give him the extra boost needed to cross over, and lands as he slashes through Sada. The man is too stunned to even move a muscle. He gets killed by the samurai's sword. Meanwhile, back at Shishido's residence, the man is enjoying the scene in his front yard, which happens to be corpses spread out. Yuen asks about not fleeing. Shishido wants to capture the moment on his camera, but he is waiting for the sun to rise. Yuen informs him that he might not live to see that through. Shishido tries to bargain with him, his life for whatever Yuen wants. He can fulfill the man's dreams. He thinks that Yuen wants the whole world burned down, which is why he wants to entrust his opium den to Yuen. The latter isn't falling for it. He stands strong in his faith, and reminds him that they all are sinners, and will be judged if they just keep on watching the world burn down, and not do a thing about it. Shishido takes out a pistol to fire at him, but Yuen gets around him faster than he can even pull the trigger, and splays a gold leaf over his face. Neo wraps a glass-coated string around him. Yuen starts praying. Shishido can only watch in horror as he nears his end. He stumbles off the balcony and lands headfirst on the ground. Neo takes his monkey and they both leave. Soji blow up the cave filled with opium. He returns to Hana. The kid sure missed him. Yuen reports back to the chapel of fulfilling Liu's vendetta. Gerald doesn't seem fazed by it. Maybe he has something in store for them. Teppa seems to have recovered because he's back at his office, while Jinkuro is surrounded by prostitutes when the nun shows up, pouring him a drink. Is it laced with something? We'll soon find out. Yuen, Soji, and Teppa stand at the mountain path where Raizo fell from in the beginning. They throw Yui's vendetta coin into the water stream with the story that he died there. It's winter now. Raizo still can't get out the image of the sullen face of Yui. He keeps painting and painting, but her expression remains the same. Will he ever be able to forgive himself? He goes under the bridge where he first met Yuen. Suddenly, Suit comes out of nowhere, digging his sword into Raizo's back and laughs menacingly. The boy had lived while the rest of the group was killed. Raizo slowly turns around with a smile on his face. The kid scurries away. Ritsu takes it out from his back and sits under the bridge with Yui's pin in his hand. Yuen finds him again. He puts his hand on the hand of his lifeless comrade. Hundreds of fireflies light up around them. The samurai's desire for atonement has finally been fulfilled. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.